be better when we work together. Okay. I'm telling you, it takes a village, guys. Village. All right. All right, we are going to get started on this. Oh, this seems really loud tonight. We are going to call to order this meeting of November 14th. I'm sorry, I cannot get logged in on my computer right now, so I'm trying to do that too. We are going to do our call to order roll call, and we're doing things in a little bit of a different order this evening just because we had some presenters who could only come at specific times.
Student Trustee Deodar.
Here.
Student Trustee Garcia Bustamante.
Here.
Trustee Rosenbaum.
Here.
Trustee Khan.
Here.
Trustee Hopwood.
Here.
Vice President Boyd. President Davidson.
Here.
Superintendent Wells.
Did you get Trustee Boyd here?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, Vice President Boyd.
Vice President
here.
Boyd.
Here.
Thank you.
All right. We will now do the reading of the Albany Unified Norms and the vision and mission statement. Please and thank you.
The mission of Albany Unified School District is to provide excellent public education that empowers all to achieve their fullest potential as productive citizens. AUSD is committed to creating comprehensive learning opportunities in a safe, supportive, and collaborative environment, addressing the individual needs of each student.
Meeting norms. Maintain a focus on what is best for our students. Ensure a safe environment for all views to be expressed, treating each other, staff, and the public respectfully. Endeavor to find common solutions to issues through collaboration without sacrificing one's beliefs in what is best for students. Make a commitment to effective deliberation, each one listening with an open mind, while others are allowed to express their own points of view, even if one disagrees.
All right. Thank you. We will now do the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join and or stand if you would like. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. And we will now take our approval of the agenda or questions or comments on our agenda.
I'll move the agenda as written, as presented, whatever.
All right, all in favor of the agenda? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. The agenda passes unanimously. We are now ready to do our review and discussion item this evening, which is the community survey results for the potential parcel tax measure and tax ballot language.
Madam President, I'm going to turn this over as an introduction to our CBO, Jackie Kim.
Thank you, Dr. Wells. So at September 2023 board meeting, the board approved the contract with Team CivicX and Goodby Research to provide public opinion and polling services in regards to a survey for the partial tax, passing a new partial tax to replace the current partial tax Measure B. And Team CivicX and Goodby Research are here this evening to present the survey result. Let's see. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you. Which podium do you want me on? Here?
Okay. And Brian, you get to share your presentation if you like to, or I can do that as well.
Nice to see you all. Thank you for having me. My name is Jeremy Hauser, founding partner with Team Civics. As Dr. Wells and Jackie mentioned, we have been working behind the scenes to conduct polling on potential parcel tax renewal and are here tonight to present the results of that poll. So if you go to the next slide, Brian. Before I kick it over to Brian to actually walk through the results of the polling process, so I want to reorient you all to where we've been since we spoke last and just give everyone a reminder of what's happened. We received direction from you at your September 26th board meeting to assess the feasibility of exploring a renewal, and specifically a renewal option that would increase the annual revenue that you're bringing in on an annual basis for your schools. With that direction, we worked with Brian Godby at Godby Research to actually conduct the polling itself so that we could answer some key strategic questions that we're going to provide answers to tonight. Most importantly, what sort of tax rate sensitivities exist in Albany? What are the implications of a change in tax structure? What sort of community awareness exists in the district today about your budget and how a parcel tax plays a role in that budget? When is the right time to go to the ballot? And the key features and programs to be funded by a parcel tax renewal. And then the last thing I'll note before I kick it to Brian, just to remind you all, our polling focused solely on renewing your existing parcel tax, which is a flat rate tax, with a new rate structure, and that's one based on the square footage of buildings rather than that flat per parcel rate, with the insinuation being that the more square footage you have, obviously the higher your tax rate will be. So with that, I will kick it over to Brian to walk through the numbers, and then I'll stick around at the end and talk about next steps and implications.
Great, Jeremy, thank you very much. I think I am sharing the screen, but I can't tell if it's being shared, if you can see that there.
We can see it.
Okay, great. Thank you, appreciate that. So as Jeremy and Jackie alluded to, we were commissioned by the district to conduct a survey of local voters. We looked at a variety of different issues, including quality of education, the district's handling of taxpayer funds, and to see if there was a general sense that there was need for additional funding. We looked at specific ballot questions, and you'll see those in a moment, for a parcel tax measure. We looked at various projects and programs that you might fund with the money. And then we looked at both positive and negative statements and to see what the impact on the support would be. And as Jeremy alluded to, we also looked at rate and duration issues as well. And of course, there's a wide range of demographic and behavioral characteristics that we use to make sure that the sample is initially representative of the community, but we also segment the data by that to further analyze the results. In terms of the methodology, a little more specifically, this was an online and phone survey. Phone survey meaning, yes, still some landlines. Some cell phones, those are both very difficult to get now. And the bulk of the interviews come from the online survey, both from a text invitation and an email invitation. And the text obviously is where the vast majority come from. The universe was likely November 2024 voters in the district and a subset of March 2024 voters. The primary doesn't have the same turnout. It's a little smaller than the general election, so it's completely contained within that November universe. We were in the field in late October from the 23rd through the 28th. The average survey on the phone, which is still our metric for measuring the length, was 25 minutes. We completed 445 interviews. Our goal was 400, so we exceeded that, and that gives us a margin of error at the likely November universe of plus or minus 4.55%, or in the likely March universe, 5.44. If you round those based on standard rounding, they both are 5% in round numbers. So moving into the data, the first set of questions, again, was kind of a climate background, what people think first about the quality of education, because we've done the survey and this same question for the district for several years. We've got not only this information, which you can see that among the likely November voters, there's 79% that have a favorable view of the quality of education. When you look at the table below, you see that 83% in round numbers had a favorable view among the March likely voters. So even though it's a smaller universe, the view of the quality of education is slightly higher. Comparing that with the 2019 survey for the same March and November universes, that was a presidential election year as well, of course. We were at 77 for March and 76 for November. So statistically speaking, there isn't a difference, but it's a little bit better in both elections in 24. And that's, of course, where we wanted to see it go. What's a little bit unusual is most districts are still kind of suffering with the effects of the pandemic. And that means the quality of education took a hit during the pandemic, and many haven't recovered to where they were pre-pandemic. Clearly, you have that 2020 survey was actually done in 2019. So you're doing great, is what it comes down to. In terms of managing of public funds, same sort of idea, adding the very and somewhat favorable together. You see we're at 60% in round numbers. That almost always goes down from the quality of education because there are a chunk of people that don't know and they're being honest about it. But that's still at 60%. That's a really excellent number, really. With the negatives at just 13% in round numbers, we're at 4.65 to 1, positive to negative. That's great. And it's even a little bit higher when we look at the March universe. And again, that's higher than back in 2019 for the 2020 presidential election cycle. Moving to the next question, which was agreement or disagreement with the statement the district needs additional funds to do its job educating students. Again, adding the positives together here, you see that we're at 67% in round numbers that agree. It's the generic kind of test of the idea of need for money, not specific. We'll see that in a moment. And 17% that were in disagreement. That's a little bit higher in November than it is in the previous election, but it's higher yet again in the March election. So the March environment seems more positive toward the district than the November. Statistically, it's not significant, but it's certainly consistent across these measures. So at that point in the survey, we switched gears and we did a ballot question, and you see the exact wording that we tested on the right-hand side of the slide. It meets all the statewide legal requirements. It can't exceed 75 words. It has to have a tax rate, which in this case is 50 cents per building square foot. And as Jeremy alluded to, we're focusing on switching from the flat rate parcel tax to a per square foot of building space. So the rate is, again, 50 cents per square foot plus $25 for an unimproved parcel, since you have to tax everybody. And then we have to also have how much it raises annually, and that's 4.3 million. And it has to have a term, which you can see is until ended by voters, which is been validated legally. It's obviously in perpetuity. The rest of the wording is ours to work with, and this was our best guess from the previous measures that the district has had in the previous surveys. And you see that our bullets are attracting and retaining teachers and counselors, protecting science, math, arts, reading, language instruction, maintaining small class sizes, et cetera. And so when we add the definitely and probably yeses together, which we do for feasibility, you see in March we're at 76%, and in November we're at 73%, continuing the trend that March is a little more favorable. Both of those numbers are great. They both cover the margin of error over the 2/3 threshold that you need to be successful with this kind of measure. And that's a wonderful place to start, since we really haven't told them much about the measure or why it would be important to support it. The next question was a longer list of things that we might spend the money on, and these were all presented in a random order. This is the priority after we got through with the interviewing, and we created a ranking that you see here next to the red bars. It's our intensity scale, and as you can see across the bottom of the slide, it's much more likely the 2, somewhat more likely is the 1, somewhat less likely is a -1, and much less likely is a -2. We do that because it takes into account not just the raw percentages, but also the intensity. So if, for example, if you had something that was 60% much more likely and 10% somewhat more likely, that would be 70%. Obviously, we want to be in that area for a 2/3 parcel tax. But you could also have the reverse. It could be 10% much more likely and 60% somewhat more likely. It's still 70%, but it's not the same intensity by any stretch of the imagination. So that's why we use this intensity scale, but it is somewhat abstract. So we also do add the much more likely and somewhat more likely together just to illustrate the point of where we are vis-a-vis the 2/3 threshold, but it is ranked by intensity. So that problem is eliminated. So in our top tier, which is a grouping that is statistically tied, you see we range from 81% to 78, and that includes attract and retain exceptional teachers and counselors, protect science, math, arts, reading, and language instruction, support music, art, and theater programs, and maintain small class sizes. You'll notice that that's slightly different than the order that we had in the ballot question, and this is the voters' priorities today. Again, when we wrote the ballot question, we made our best estimate of what we thought would be the best at this stage, but the whole point is to learn from the survey, and you'll see that as Jeremy presents the recommended language toward the end of the discussion. The next set of questions was the informational statements. These are basically accountability provisions and also positive arguments. And the methodology is largely the same, although the scale is slightly truncated. So it still works the same way, but you can't compare this 1.45 with that 1.33 in the previous question set, but you can compare the percentages with the near the blue arrow, because that's much more likely, somewhat more likely, just like it is in the previous question. So at the top of this list, we have the measure will ensure that large businesses like Target pay more than single-family homes, ensuring that the measure is fair. That's 83%, at least somewhat more likely to support the measure. The measure is not a new tax, and it would simply replace an existing source of funding approved by the voters. That's at virtually the same level. All of the money will be controlled locally and cannot be taken by the state, is what's beyond the ellipses there. And that's almost always in the top three, because people like that, the voters like that accountability, that the money stays locally. In a job market with major teacher shortages, this measure will help the district attract and retain high quality teachers. The measure will help the district pay competitive wages. The measure will help the district recruit and retain. So all three of those are about teachers and retaining teachers, as is the next one. We live in an expensive place, and this makes it hard for teachers, so we need to pay them well. And then finally, the measure will prevent devastating cuts to academic programs. And that's, again, all in the low 80s to high 70s, which is a great place to be, because we need 2/3, and we're well above that, even with the 5% plus or minus margin of error. The next slide shows the continuation of this question. It was a long set of items, and the top group in here in tier 2 is similarly helpful. You can see we're in the low 70s with the first several. The district could lose more than $500,000 if Golden Gate Field is transferred to a new owner. None of the money be used for administrator salaries, and the measure requires independent citizens oversight. Those are all pretty good in that low 70s, but beyond that, while they're positive items, the rest of the list, we're at the point where we could be within the margin of error vis-a-vis the 2/3 threshold. So positive things, we shouldn't be afraid of them, but I don't think we want to be talking about them if we're leading with our best, which is the items on the previous page. The next set of questions, again, this was a long list, continues, but the bad news here, these things are all below the 2/3 threshold. So these are items that, you know, positives, and they may identify important educational goals the bottom line is they don't get us to the 2/3 threshold, so they're just not very helpful. So at this point in the survey, we've introduced the ballot question. We talked about what we might spend the money on. We've talked about the positives, and we come back to our ballot question a second time, exact same wording as the first. We haven't changed it. And what we would expect to see is a bump, and we actually do. We go from 76% in the first test for the March universe to 82, which is again great. And the same thing for November. We go from 73 to 77, and both of those are really good, and we certainly have many clients that would love to have numbers like this. But the one caveat is it's 51% definitely yes, that's really solid. But there's still 30% here that are probably yes, so you need to do your work. You just can't put this on the ballot and assume it's going to win. There needs to be an independent effort underscoring why this is important, what the money is going to be used for, because if you do, if you just put it on the ballot, you might lose half of these people. If you lose that, then the total isn't 82, it's 66. And that could be a loss, particularly with the margin of error. So from there, we then went back to the other side of the coin and looked at the negative statements. And the methodology here is largely the same as the informational items. We don't put a minus sign in front of them to seem bad. The higher it is, the worse it is for the measure. So at the top of this list, the cost of living adjustment built into the measure means that the rate will increase automatically every year. That's 36%, at least somewhat more likely to vote no. So that's above the 33.4% threshold necessary to defeat a measure like this, and certainly something we need to pay attention to see if it becomes a negative that we're hearing in the campaign. Obviously, our best arguments are somewhat different, and we need to make sure that we're getting that word out on the favorables. Next is the measure is in addition to the $4.5 million forever school parcel tax that was approved in 2009 and increases the amount by an additional $2.3 million. That's at virtually the same level. Homeowners in Albany are paying city, county, sales taxes, parcel taxes, and other school taxes and bond measures. We can't afford all these taxes, essentially. The measure does not have an expiration date and will go on forever. District has too many high-paid administrators, a pretty standard anti-tax argument. But the good news there is we're starting to get down to below or right at the 33.4% threshold. And then finally, the money will just go to fund out-of-district students who don't pay Albany property taxes. And this, too, was a question that had several items, and so it continues on to the next slide. You see a little bit of a bump, and that explains the reason we use the intensity score, not the percentages, to rate these items. But this is an important one with residents and businesses struggling with continued inflation, high gas and grocery prices, high rents, high interest rates. Now's not the right time. At 33.5, that's something we need to be aware of. I've seen that in other districts a lot higher. So while this is one of the big issues of our day, and we need to be aware of it, it's not as bad as I've seen it in many other districts. If the district manages money better, we wouldn't need the tax increase. Again, another standard anti-tax argument. The state should do its job and fund education, a standard anti-tax. The average homeowner would pay $660 a year, and homes that are larger than the average will pay even more. That's only 26%. There's still some sensitivity there, but the good news is it's below the 33.4% because we have done the math, and that's what 50 cents equals. And then a final anti-tax is fairly typical. So the structure of the survey is very intentional. We start with little information on our ballot question. We then give them the positives to see how much we bump up. We then give them the negatives, and we expect it to go down. And when we come back to our ballot question, we see that it does go down. But the good news is while we started at 76 and we went up to 82, we're still at 76 right after all the negatives. And I think that's very encouraging. Another way to look at the results are to average the second and third test, in which case we're almost 79%. Both of those numbers, whether it's the final test or the average, suggest that the measure should be moving forward. There is work to do for sure, but you're in really good shape. The same is true, again, at a slightly lower level. We started at 73, and we're at 72 now, but when we average, we're at 75. So it could work in November, but my preference is always, if I've got good numbers, go for the first election, because obviously polling is a snapshot in time, and it's a lot closer to March than it is to November, and a lot of things can happen between now and next November. Now, we didn't know where we were going to wind up, so we had some fallback questions. The first one was, instead of 50 cents per building square foot, what if it was 45 cents? And you see that doesn't really help us in either case. It's actually a little lower, probably because we're focusing now on the tax rate, and we've got references to the $660 and the $600. So there's a lot about the taxes and not a lot about what we're going to spend the money on. But regardless, I don't think there's any reason to go lower, because, again, flipping back to the previous question, we were at 76% in the March election after negatives, and that's a great place to be. Now, there was another fallback, and that was, instead of the until ended by voters, what if it was just 9 years? And again, that doesn't really help us either. The until ended by voters is kind of a friendlier way of talking about the term. Again, it's been vetted in courts, so it's legal. But 9 years, for some people might be too short. For other people, it's set in stone and doesn't have the flexibility of the until ended by voters. So again, I think that we can go with the 50 cents until ended by voters, because we've got support for that in three tests. And from there, our final question was sort of a background question again. What do you think the direction of the economy is going to be? It's kind of their forecast. This is among the November voters. And you see we're at 16% better, 34% worse, and 40% about the same. That better is lower than I've seen it in other districts of late. So they're a little more pessimistic in Albany, which again, I think is a reason to be moving forward toward March rather than waiting and letting, events go where they might, which might not help us. So that is the data that I have for tonight. I'm going to turn it back to Jeremy, and he can wrap up, and then we can answer questions.
Thank you, Brian. Just want to talk about some recommendations and then give you specifically our recommended ballot language that we would bring back to you at your next meeting and get some specific direction from you all. First and foremost, these are really, really positive numbers, and you all should give yourselves a pat on the back for the great job you're doing educating students. Because of these numbers, it's our recommendation that you do move forward with a square footage-based parcel tax renewal, and that you specifically target the March 5th primary for all of the reasons that Brian mentioned, and also because if you were successful in March, you can get this tax on the rolls 1 year sooner, right? It could start on July 1 of 2024. It's also our recommendation that you take the time to educate and inform your community about your plans, should you agree to move forward with a square footage-based measure, and specifically communicate those needs to them between now and when you act as a board. The one drawback of March is that it's very soon. The deadline to qualify for that ballot is December 8th of this year. So with your direction, we would come back to you at your next regularly scheduled meeting on November 28th with a full resolution that would call that March 5th primary election and place your measure on the ballot. We could, if need be, call a special meeting between the 28th and December 8th if we needed it, although we think we can get some direction from you all tonight and bring back a resolution that you'd be ready to approve. If you go to the next slide, Brian. And the direction we specifically need is basically affirmation of our recommendations, which again, first and foremost, are the March 5th primary. It's the tax rate, which you will see on the next slide. We're recommending that 50 cents per square foot. It's the duration, which you'll also see we are recommending that until ended by voters in perpetuity measure. It's whether or not to include a cost of living adjustment, which we are recommending that you do include, and we'll need some specific direction as to how we structure that. Your current measure also has a cost of living adjustment that is tied to the Bay Area CPI. We could undertake that same process again, or we could tie it to a specific percentage, and we can talk about the pros and cons of that. And then we also would need direction from you all to embark on that public education and informational communications effort, specifically the portion that has a financial implication, that direct mail piece that we spoke about last time. We really think it's a good idea to get something out to your community soon so that the first time they're reading about this measure isn't when they're voting on it in February. And then the final slide that I have before we go into questions are the specific language that we are recommending from the polling, putting in your resolution that we would bring back to you on the 28th. So specifically, to maintain excellent schools by attracting and retaining exceptional teachers and counselors, protecting science, math, arts, reading and language instruction, supporting music, art, and theater programs, and maintaining small class sizes, shall Albany Unified School Districts measure renewing parcel tax authority at 50 cents per building square foot and $25 per unimproved parcel be adopted, raising $4.3 million annually that cannot be taken by the state until ended by voters with senior exemptions, annual adjustments, audits, and all funds staying local. So with that, happy to take any questions on the data, on the recommendations, and about next steps.
Okay, thank you so much for that thorough presentation. Are there any questions from the board? Trustee Rosenbaum?
So I'm glad you mentioned informing the community. This is a very thin community as far as there's a lot of buzz about this already. What I'm worried about, not worried about, but these slides were available to the public in our board, packet. On the informational statements, I mean, there's a lot of truncated sentences, not complete, and I think some people will be confused. So, ensuring what? By what? Rate of what? So I would urge us to reformat these, get it out again to the public, so there's no confusion. I was like, this, what is the public? I've been through dozens of these. That's my point.
Madam Chair, if I can highlight the recommendation that our consultant experts are making. And thank you, you're absolutely right. And that's why I want to illuminate the point that Jeremy just made about it's important to send out communication with the clarity so that folks are not confused and it's not the first time they're hearing it. And that's why, but thank you for catching that. That was a very important point.
Heard you great.
I have a teacher voice.
Any other? Yeah, Trustee Hopwood.
Thanks, Jeremy, and thanks, Brian. I know you can probably still hear us. So on question 9 to question 10, we talked about the per square foot rate of 50 cents and 45, and basically 50 cents was actually more popular by a little margin than 45 cents. And Brian just mentioned that he didn't see any reason to go lower than 45. I was just curious if there was a reason not to go higher than 50, because we looked at the 50 and the 45, and we actually can see that the 50 is slightly more popular. Is there a reason not to go to 55, for example, which would generate, by my crude math calculations, probably another 400,000 a year?
The only reason to not do it is that we don't have specific data that tells us it is that we would get the same results that we see here at the 50-cent rate. We could imply that our chances would likely be pretty good, but the second we change anything significantly in the ballot question that we tested, and specifically I would say the tax rate, we start to venture into uncharted territory in terms of what our likelihood of success is. Are these numbers incredibly positive? Yes. Is a 5-cent increase a significant increase? No, it is not. But I just want to underscore that we just no longer have the data that shows us definitively, we can be successful. And I'd also add that, these numbers are, like I said, very positive, and most districts that look to put a measure on the ballot that A, does not expire, and B, has a cost of living adjustment built in, most districts cannot get to that 2/3 threshold. So we're making a lot of asks here, and we're being, we're pretty happy to see the numbers that we're seeing, but I just want to caution that when we do start tinkering, especially upward, we're starting to venture a little bit into uncharted territory.
So it's more of a kind of not rocking the boat and playing it a little bit safe in that
Correct.
sense. Okay, thank you.
How did sorry, I know the board asked specifically that we were just getting presentations on community feedback, but I feel like now we're locked in at our rate. But we had asked to have a conversation about that. So I feel like it's great that we did this research, but I kind of feel like we all got left out of that conversation a little bit. So I'm just kind of wondering what the plan is on that. This 4.3 million sounds nice. How did we arrive at that being the amount that we need to offset things? Is it an arbitrary number? Because 50 cents sounds nice per building square foot. What are we talking? Where did this come from? Why is this what we're putting out there? Can you give us any more information on that?
Yeah, I'd love to kick that to Jackie, who we worked with in consultation on a few different rate scenarios. So maybe you could walk through the different scenarios that we looked at.
Sure. So this 50 cents will increase about $2 million from the current Measure B. And also that is something, what we look is Albany average home size is about 1,300 square foot home. And so current Measure B, so that homeowner will have to pay $490. With this new partial tax, we'll have to pay $660. So it's about $170 for the average homeowner. So we thought that is something that more reasonable since we are shifting from the flat rate to progressive rate. With that, there's a structure change, and the average homeowner has to pay about $170 more annually, and also bring the district about $2 million extra. I think that's something that we discussed with few of the board members and also with some of the community leaders.
But the elephant in the room is what happens to the racetrack. And what will the impact be if it becomes public land and doesn't produce any tax revenue? And I think we've talked about that before, but.
Right. So that means that it's, that's a very good point. Thank you for that. So that really means that it's really not, so for this Measure B, it will stay the same, but there's another measure, J, will have impact of about 600,000 lost. So in total of both measures, we will have not $2 million additional, but it's going to be about $1.4 million.
Thank you.
Trustee Khan, did you have some?
I was just going to ask, I know you said in the next meeting we want to see resolution language, and we also mentioned getting information out to the community. Will we be, I guess this is a question maybe for you, Veronica, but sorry, why did I say your full name? Sorry, I'm tired.
That is my name.
President Davidson, the question might be for you. Will we, and I don't know who it's for actually, but will we be voting on which of the three? Because I know we technically approved the package of how much we wanted to enter into an agreement with you guys on, but will we be actually voting on which of the three we will be moving forward with, or how many of the three at the next meeting? Because I know those were the three mailers were optional, and so just if either of you can.
We would have to vote on that because we haven't approved any of that funding yet.
But will we see it at the same time? Sorry. Will we see it at the same time as we approve the rest?
That is a very good question.
Just because I would assume we might want to see at least a prototype of what one of those mailers might look like before. So just, yeah.
So I can answer a few of those questions. First, it's our recommendation we just do one piece of mail and not one with the tear-off reply card. So it would be the $9,200 in round number mailer. So our recommendation that we get that approval from you all tonight and work on it tomorrow and turn it around so we can get it out in the community before that November 28th meeting. And the reason being is that because you as a board will be voting on a measure at that meeting, the goal is really to A, inform them about the specific structure and what it would fund, but B, let them know that there will be a public community meeting where you as a board will be deciding to act on it. So in order for it to have our intended effect, we can't bring a prototype to the 28th because it'll already be out in the community, with your direction, of course. And that would be our recommended approach because you then are being transparent before you make the decision. It's harder to be transparent and solicit feedback once a measure is on the ballot because that cake is baked and we can't really go back and change it. So that's why we are looking to get the direction tonight, really turn it around tomorrow and get it out in mailboxes ASAP.
Okay, can we go a tiny bit mathematical here? I just need to really understand this. Marina, can I put you on the spot? What is our current enrollment in the district? 3575. Okay. I'm just trying to figure out, because we had our conversations before about how we wanted to get close to the statewide average for funding, and I'm just not seeing if we're asking for 2 million more a year. Let me be very frank, as someone who's, living in Albany and gonna pay for this, I'm not like raring to pay much more than this, but I want us to be really reasonable about what we're asking for. If we're asking for this, we are only getting $559 more per student per year, which if we only get 15,681 plus 559, that's still 16,240 and leaves us over $2,000 behind the statewide average. So I'm just wondering, is this really gonna do what we need it to do? Especially if now you're saying, also, out of this, we might have to make up for some of what we're losing from the racetrack.
Madam Chair Davidson, the short answer to that is that it's a significant step in the right direction. But no, it won't put us above the state average. We have a work to do, but this will make significant steps towards that.
It'll make a little step towards it. $559 per student step. Luckily, today is a review and discussion. We don't have to make a decision, except that you need to know our leaning direction for the wording on this, but that would include the rate.
Correct.
I thought we were also approving which of the 3 mailer options to go with tonight as well. Are we?
Nothing today. We don't have to approve anything today. Review and discussion only today.
And we're gonna be voting on some legal help with wording, so we have to talk about that when it comes up. We can't answer your question.
Wait, you can't distribute a mailer tomorrow because we can't. We only have a review and discussion item tonight on this. Review and discuss the community survey results for this and tax ballot language. We can review and discuss it tonight, but we cannot make a decision on this because we don't have a review and action item on our agenda tonight.
It's agendized for next week.
Yeah, we can. I want to be clear about the 2 different pieces, and this is a piece that we want to highlight. The board can give direction tonight. And so what I'm hearing is a question of 50%, that's not significant. Do we want to push it to, 50 to 60? The board can make that decision in terms of giving direction to us tonight, if it's so desire. But we do need direction tonight. Otherwise, we're going to miss deadline and miss the opportunity.
So just to be clear, direction needed. So the deadline to file for the ballot is the 8th of December.
Correct.
So we need to allow a little bit of time before that to get this all locked in.
Correct.
November the 28th, we're holding a meeting, which is a special meeting for 30 minutes as a review and action item to actually finalise this. But
Correct.
it sounds like there's something in the middle, which is the direction needed. Now, one of these things is public education and informational communications.
Right.
I'm assuming that one of those three communications we talked about, Vonnie specifically mentioned wanting to have a separate vote to approve the funds for the informational communications, but it seems that suddenly we're having to give direction on it, which sounds a little bit like we need to decide on it, and without a vote, which we actually had as an addendum to that last approval. Am I right here?
You're 100% on.
Okay, so I'm just a little, I feel like there's a piece missing here, I'm not quite sure how this has come to be, but we need to figure out our plan, because we can't really give direction without a vote, it sounds like, when it comes to those extra funds for the communications.
I mean, there's a lot of things that we saw that I like. That's as much as I think we can say today. I would like to hear from our audience if they have anything to add, but I think then we need to close the discussion.
Well, we can go public comment. We can
come
come
back.
back for final comments to us.
Sure.
And then we can close the discussion. And if we need to do something else and call a special meeting or something more quickly to approve funds or something, we can also do that. May have to be
Good.
a Zoom meeting or something if we can somehow work that, or some other polling of the board. Okay, we're gonna move to public comment. If you're here and you want to make a public comment, please approach the podium. Remember to fill out your public comment form. If you're online, I'm looking for your hands to be raised right now, so please raise those, and we may kind of ping back and forth.
To us first.
I'm gonna give it to you guys. We're gonna do, are you speaking for everyone, or are you two making a separate comment and other people will speak?
We're speaking on behalf of ATA.
Okay, so we'll give 3 minutes for this one.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone, for coming out tonight. You guys look amazing in your beautiful red Union t-shirts. Thanks, guys. Looking at these poll results, we are reminded how lucky we are to work in a community that values education and values educators.
And we, the members of Albany Teachers Association, are here tonight to show support for a parcel tax that works to recruit and retain teachers and keep Albany's public schools excellent and dedicated to supporting our students.
Our schools are fantastic. The outcomes of our students are among the best in the state. Families choose to raise their children here because of this. This is a testament to the passion and the hard work of our educators.
Yet we find ourselves at a crossroads where our ability to recruit and retain teachers and counselors is being challenged by surrounding districts. We cannot afford to lose our most talented and dedicated educators to neighboring communities.
If we do it right, this parcel tax can provide a much-needed step in boosting our competitiveness. By passing such a tax, we are investing not only in the success of our students, but we are also acknowledging the hard work and dedication of our educators.
We look forward to working together as a community that values education and educators to make this happen. Thank you.
Are there any other public comments in the room? I'm going to go to our virtual comment then.
There. Can you guys hear me? Yep. Wonderful. I am a parent of a preschooler who's got an August birthday. And recently I've kind of noticed that some FAQ pages on the Albany
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to pause you
Yeah?
for a second. I think this might be a comment on an item not on the agenda, and we're not quite at that yet. Is this about the parcel tax, or is this about something else?
No, and I'm sorry, this is my first time kind of joining one of these, but
No worries. I'm going to pause you for a second, if that's okay, and we are going to have public comment just shortly after our spotlight. So can you hang with us for a few minutes? Yes? Okay.
Yes, that was a yes.
Oh, okay, thanks. Okay. Any other comments on the parcel tax? Proposed, the survey results, and the potential ballot language? Okay. Sounds like we just need a little quick clarification on what is happening next. I was trying to find the timeline that we got in the middle of this, so if anyone has that easily accessible, there was a timeline that was shared with all of us, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to dig for it.
So I can speak to the portions that are set in stone, no direction needed, will happen.
Okay.
We will come back on November 28th with a resolution calling a March 5th parcel tax renewal election. It is our recommendation that resolution include that 75-word ballot question that I included, as well as a 50 cents per square foot tax rate, an annual cost of living adjustment, ideally tied to Bay Area CPI, because it's a practice you've already undertaken, and until ended by voter sunset, i.e. no sunset. We are going to come back to you all on November 28th with the full resolution, which includes that 75-word statement, but also includes the full text of the measure. Obviously, in 75 words, we can't say everything that the parcel tax is going to fund, so there's also a requisite document included in that resolution that more fully fleshes out how the funds will be spent, how the oversight will be set up, and how the tax will be collected. What we don't have direction on or are unclear on are whether or not we can send a mail piece out between tonight and the 28th, letting the public know that the board is considering placing a measure on the ballot in the future, and that you will be having that meeting on November 28th to have that discussion.
No, you cannot, because we have not approved funds for that. We don't have the ability to make a decision to spend those funds this evening, unfortunately. So we can do anything that doesn't cost money. We can email people and let them know. Everybody's got that power. We can do anything that doesn't cost money. This is public knowledge. It's on the meeting agenda for November 28th. We can all share that. We gotta do our job. We cannot approve any funds for a mailer to go out for that in this time frame.
Duly noted.
Okay.
I will just clarify that we have already been working in the background on other messaging materials that don't incur hard costs. So an FAQ, fact sheet, and content for your website, which you are more than happy to use, and we don't need any direction on because there's no hard costs associated. So
Okay.
that will all be available to you as well to be distributed as you see fit. So it's not like we're not going to have any sort of communication whatsoever.
Great. That is awesome to hear. And then my question would be, so we're gonna get that language on the 28th. In the interim, I think that it would be helpful if there was, I don't think that we can land on that 50 cents without a little bit more information. Unless that's like, I mean, I guess that you guys can tell us that's our recommendation, we're holding firm to that, and we just need to move forward and then we can make that decision.
I think the only thing that we could decide if we want to move next week's meeting up. That's the only thing we can change. And I don't think there's any rush, to tell you the truth, but that's a possibility.
It's on the 28th.
28th, yeah.
I mean, so basically, I mean, if I'm reading the room,
Yes.
we all are okay to put a parcel tax on. We just don't quite know the rate yet. And I think
Understood.
that we need a little bit more information on that before we as community can make an informed decision. So,
Understood. And I have one more point of clarification as well. When we bring you a resolution on the 28th, you can amend it and adopt it as amended, right? We try and get it as close as possible to the final, so there's not a ton of amendments, but that is an option available as well.
I'm sorry. Just one more question. We have an item on our calendar for tonight about getting professional legal opinions and work on the parcel tax ballot and language and requirements. Is that something that you're handling instead, from what I'm hearing?
No.
No. Thank you.
Yeah, we're working in coordination with your legal counsel, who I believe is William Tunick, is the legal counsel before you at DWK.
Okay.
Work with William on hundreds of these measures, and so basically how that process works is we give him our recommended language, and he plugs it into the resolution with all the parameters that we state to make sure it's done in a legally viable
Okay,
way.
that's makes it clear.
Yeah.
Thank you.
William Tunick is one of our local experts on the legal requirements so that if they're challenged, they're defensible. And so he does that work exclusively, of course, with all of our input.
I get it.
One last point I want to make because it's really critical, and I appreciate Jeremy highlighting it, and the board, what I think I heard tonight, like, why 50%? Why not 60? And so when we bring the resolution back on the 28th, we are going to have to make a decision at that time to be 60 and 50 and the impact of that, and CBO Jackie Kim would have the numbers because nothing precludes you from going 60 because we believe in our community and that they would support it. And so I appreciate this kind of open, transparent kind of conversation. Internally, as we grapple with numbers, we were super conservative and wanted to see what passed, and a lot of this is guesstimation. But I believe in this community based on the parents, hundreds of parents I talk to on a regular basis. What they tell me is they love their schools and they love their teachers. And I hear what you say, but I believe what you do, so I want to put your money where your mouth is. I like to, this is just me talking exclusively. The more would be beneficial and allow us to be more competitive. In all seriousness, when we anticipate whether or not we can compete with our salaries, we're at the bottom right now. And so as we begin to anticipate and look at what Alameda just did with the parcel tax replica that you see tonight, Piedmont and Berkeley, we will lose our best and our brightest to those kinds of folks who are having these competitive salaries where we can live and afford to stay in the Bay Area, and that's why we went after the parcel tax. Now, the issue is how much was a really good question, and I'm so glad you raised it, because if you say, okay, Dr. Wells, what would you like and what would you recommend, independent of anything else? And I think President Davidson hit the nail on the head when she said, this still is below state average. And that really hit me right there, because that's a reality. So thank you.
Yes, Trustee Khan.
Back to my clarifying question from earlier. So are we going to then have a special meeting separately to approve one of the mailers, or are we going to have that on the 28th, or where are we with that then?
Let's agendize that onto the 28th. We'll just add it into that agenda, yeah?
Yes, Ms. Shin, you note that. Thank you.
And we can make sure we revisit that at future agenda items for that meeting. Okay, with that, we are going to adjourn this conversation, and really appreciate you being here and presenting online.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And thank all of you for coming after work. All right, we are now going to do our spotlight on the Albany Aquatic Center.
Oh.
Got it? Everything you got.
Oh, wait, am I not speaking?
No, just pass it down to everyone.
Oh, it's everyone.
Yeah.
Oh, it's everyone. Got it.
Oh.
I'm guilty, but I have a loud voice. That's what I get for being a teacher for 40 years.
Good afternoon, good evening, Drew. In a moment, CBO Jackie Kim's going to introduce you, so just hang loose for a minute.
Here we go.
Hey,
All right, those teachers don't understand we need a quiet classroom. Come on, guys.
They spent a whole day keeping their classrooms quiet, and now they're
All right.
Very impressive to see somebody come out.
Good job.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Boy, I was
All right.
Hey, yes, thank you. So we have the Nelson Aquatic Center Director to present and do great news about Albany Aquatic Center.
Thank you very much for having me here today. So a little bit background about me. I have been working at the Aquatic Center in various different positions since 2012, taking over Aquatics Director in April 2022. So we'll get right into it. Okay. So we have Making Waves swims on Sundays, 11:30 until 12 o'clock or until 1 o'clock. And it's a group of larger sized women, men, anyone who wants to go swimming in our facility. Great people. We see them almost every day that we are open on Sundays. So that is I think they've been swimming since 1980 at the Aquatic Center, if I remember right. So it's a great little community.
And I just wanted to add something. I know the title, the word fed, might not be so common, but this is what I learned, that they love to promote fed swim.
Yeah.
And this is something that they want to identify, so we are respecting the word.
Yeah, definitely. This is a picture of our Albany High School water polo swim team. 4 of them are actually lifeguards and swim instructors at the Aquatic Center as well. Typically on a day, in the afternoon, 4 o'clock until 6:45, they're either lifeguarding, doing swim lessons, and then from 6:45 until 8:15, they're doing water polo or a match on certain days. So it's amazing to see them work and be devoted one day after day, Monday through Friday, and even weekends as well. So we have the Albany Armada Aquatics. We have the youth swim team, which is what you're seeing right now. Few of them are on our swim team or on our staff for swim lessons, lifeguarding. And then we also have the Albany Armada Aquatics Masters, which are the usually 18 or over workout type thing. It's not really a swim team, but it's more of adults getting a workout in rather than going to a traditional gym type of facility. And they swim Monday through Saturday. Typically in the evening, it's 4 o'clock until 8 o'clock, Monday through Friday, and then Saturdays they have 4 hours as well in the mornings. So they're at the pool pretty much every day. So Albany High School has swim lessons for the actual high school, Tuesdays and Thursdays. There's 3 days on Wednesdays, 2 days, or 3 groups on Wednesdays, and on Tuesdays there are 4 groups as well. And they are all learning to swim. The first half of fall was the sophomore, I believe, and they were learning water polo. And right now they were doing just learning to swim during their PE time frame. The Albany Community Triathlon is something that's been going on since 2016. I personally joined and did it this year myself. I've done it in previous years as well. And it's a swim, a bike, and a run around the whole area of the Aquatic Center, the whole area, excuse me. So as you can see, a lot of those swim caps on there are actually Albany Armada kids, but there are also many public around that joined in it as well. It's a booster for the athletics department to help pay for water polo, swim team, swimsuits, various different things. Okay. Special Needs Aquatics Programs is Sundays from 9 o'clock until 11:45. It's a special program that we started last year, and it really helps our community because we're not always able to give the support of swim lessons to everybody. And what they're able to do is help with that support, give more swim lessons for kids that need that extra help. Typically, it'll be 2 instructors with a single kid, and it currently goes on with other programs at the same time. So it's a great program in that. San Francisco Underwater Rugby started last year, and they are Sundays from, I think it was 11 o'clock until 1 o'clock. And it's basically water rugby, underwater rugby. So it's a lot of fun, a lot of diving, a lot of workout. You know, great program. And a new program that recently started in the last couple of months, Golden State Underwater Fitness. It was actually derived more from a military type background. You know, underwater weights, swimming, out of the water programs. And so they are here every Sunday. And then Orca Water Polo will be starting in the 2nd of December. They'll be Saturdays 1:30 to 3:30. They actually are a satellite program normally in El Cerrito, but they're branching out and joining to our facility, adding on because of all the different extra lanes that we have available. So the stats for the 22-23 swim season is 1,340 total classes. That's a lot of classes. It's great, more the merrier. An average of 5.5 kids per class with a total of 7,370 total children's spots taught.
And this is the highest ever since we opened our aquatic center.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's high school staff. That is the major driving point. Here we can see pictures of our camps. We did in previous years have an aqua camp for younger kids, and we brought it back this year, and then we added on a junior lifeguard camp. We thought it might be a great little intermediary for those who might want to be a lifeguard or learn CPR in between the aqua camp and their becoming 15 years old. So a new program that was added recently. Currently, we have 85 on staff, and we're probably going to get another 2 or 3 in the next month, if not more than that. Regularly, there's 72. Most of them are high school students working between 1 and 3 days a week, 2.5 to 4 hours a day. It really is remarkable that they go to class and then they come work after, and they do that day in and day out. And they are the driving force of what makes our program go. That's it, cool. I guess that's it. So if anyone have any questions about the spotlight? Thank you.
As someone who spent all of my high school teaching swimming lessons at local pools, I'm really excited to see this, and I know what it gave me in life. So I think this is just amazing, and it's even cooler because it's on our high school campus. And I also know from our community what having these programs here really gives back. Actually, one of my students in my class now is on the Albany Armada swim team and just loves it. And so I think it's really special that we can offer this, and we are sort of one of the few places around that offers some of these programs and has them available. So I really appreciate that we're making that happen and doing more. And it's really cool to see that these things are increasing, and I know we're going to get a presentation later on the financial side, but we've heard good things on that. So thank you for all you're doing and these creative programs and ways that everyone can get involved. I'm still going to hold out that little bit of hope that maybe our elementary school students, as some sort of PE, can get into that pool at some time, even just like once a month or something. But
I feel like I can touch on that because the summer program that we had for students, that was for students who are, gosh, I'm forgetting the word, free and reduced lunch. We have that program, and so that actually I heard from a lot of parents, and they really enjoyed it because this wasn't something that they would have otherwise had access to, and also the students had a positive reaction, and they actually wanted the sessions to be longer. So I hope you'll keep that in mind, that like there was definitely like a lot of people enjoyed it, and so thank you guys for what you guys are doing, and also making sure that it reaches a lot more students, because it does have a positive impact. Some of those kids have started taking longer swim classes in other places. So thank you for raising the next generation of swimmers, I guess. You guys are doing great.
Thank you very much.
I just want to send kudos out to Michelle Lau Sim, who formed the very first swim team at Albany High School in around 2002, 2003.
Oh, the blue dot.
Very first one. My kids learned how to swim in the old pool in the 70s. I'm so glad we built that new pool.
You know, she swims competitively in college.
Her children now are winning medals.
Let's keep swimming.
Yeah.
Thank
Come
you.
and swim on. You got it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Drew, for coming, and thank you for all you're doing. We really appreciate seeing that.
You got it.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
All right, Brooke, you've waited patiently. It's your turn for public comment on items not on the agenda. You may tell us now.
Thank you. Sorry about the mix-up earlier. Yeah, so as I was mentioning, I am the parent of a preschooler right now with an August birthday, and I noticed recently that there are web pages on the Albany school site that indicate that the school adheres to really strict decisions, I guess you could say, about the age that a student is and their birthday, and then and ultimately what grade they're enrolled at, and when they can start kindergarten, when they cannot start kindergarten. And I know that the state allows for flexibility in the approach to those dates. I've been in touch with a school board member who has indicated that there may be plans to revisit some of these policies, but was curious if there's kind of an expectation on timing for that, because if that's the case, it's something that I don't want to miss.
Okay, so we are unfortunately unable as board members to comment on items not on the agenda, but we'll note it, and the superintendent can comment, though.
Yeah, let me just say, I've seen your emails, and I'll just say this. We have been adhering to our policies and our laws as relates to age requirement. What we can do is circle back with you with our enrollment personnel to walk you through the process and why we use the ed code with the age requirement and further details. So I took your name down, and I'm going to research your email and have our enrollment department reach out to you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your patience. All right, we are now going to move on to our student board member reports.
We have a very, very quick report. Today, we went over to the middle school. The Student Advocacy Committee went to go speak to the middle school leadership, and we talked about the junior student advocacy that we've been trying to create and establish, and we got a lot of interest. Those kids were really, really excited about it, and we have a lot of signups. So we're hoping to really get that started this year, and for next year it to be strong. And that's it for our report.
Sounds like you guys have been busy. That's awesome. Thank you. I had a middle schooler send me a recording of things that they're concerned about, and I think this is a great way for us to help get their voices to all of us. Yeah. So thank you for doing that. We are going to move on now to our staff report, the Albany Aquatic Center financial report.
Awesome. All right, so I guess you already know who I am. One thing I want to put context is that aquatic centers in generally governmental entities are considered money pits. They are usually subsidized heavily to make them operate and run. So we have to understand that anytime we talk about these pools. A gym at a 24-hour fitness or something like that operates very differently because they don't always have to be staffed as much as we do for safety reasons and various other reasons. So cost-wise, it's going to be a lot more expensive to operate a pool than anything else, especially because of heating, chemicals, and all those other things. So, historical income statements. The first year that we opened, as you can see, we lost money. We got money from the general fund. We weren't open even for half a year, so we were building our staffing. 2012 through 2017 money was positive. We had money to save away, as you can see at the beginning fund near the bottom of the screen. 2017 through 2019, we started losing money, various different reasons. It was more expensive to operate, staffing-wise, chemical-wise, heating, various reasons. And then we know 2019, so on, we were hit by the pandemic, and we didn't have enough money to cover that from previous balances, so we had to use the general fund to cover it. And then, as you can see, 22-23 fiscal year was very positive. Looking at the details, swim lessons, point of sale, which is front desk and passes, had a revenue of $1,146,000 and change. Contractors, $177,000 and change, and vending machine and lockers was $1,000 and change. Total revenue, $1,325,277. As you can see from the programs that we provided, it was 86.5%. Contractors were 13.4%. Vending was 0.1%. Again, in context, looking at this, the bulk of the revenue was from swim lessons. It was not from lap swim, open exercise, and all those other programs. Looking at the expenses, salaries was $612,000 and change, benefits $134,000 and change, materials $45,000 and change, utilities, maintenance, and alliances $281,000 and change. We actually got hit pretty hard on the utilities this year. I'm not sure if everyone remembers, but it was November, December, January, February. Gas prices tripled, and so did our heating. It was $134,000 over that period of time. So it was extremely expensive to heat the pool. And it's not just one pool, it's two pools, indoor and outdoor. So total expenditures was $1,074,173, as you can see, income net of $251,104. Salaries, 57%, benefits, 12.5%, materials, 4.2%, and utilities, 12.6%. Looking at it, as you can see, if we didn't have swim lessons, we would be very far in the negative, which is why the pool was designed the way it was, is the swim lessons pays for everything. No swim lessons, and it goes negative. So looking at previous years, 2017 through 2020, you can see our graph of how many lifeguards were taught. I think this definitely was accurate. It was 3 classes, 4 classes maybe total, and each class had 5, 6, 7 people. 2020, 21, 22, it was a little bit higher. But as you can see, 22, 23 fiscal year, we really ramped up our lifeguard classes. I came in April 2022 and basically realized that the only way that we're going to be able to pay for anything is that we have to have lifeguards. Lifeguards become swim instructors, and swim instructors then become lifeguards, cross-training. Some of these people did the lifeguard class and would work with us. Some people would go else to other facilities and work there as well. So it's a homeostasis, I guess, program. More lifeguard classes, more people that want to work. Okay, this is a graph of how many classes per session. Fiscal year 18-19 was the last full year And you can look at it, and you can see we had roughly the same amount of classes as previous years. But coming into fall 22, fall 1 specifically, you can see we were a little bit higher. Fall 2, it started raised even more. Fall 3, we really started going. And then winter 2, winter 1, spring, it was significantly higher than previous years, which is the reason why we were generating that revenue. This is a graph of the use of the pool, lap swim, open exercise, the contractors. 86% is specifically from all the lap swim, hour program swim lessons, and then all that other was from the contractors. Again, the swim lessons is a very small percentage, but if you add the outdoor lap swim, indoor lap swim, rec swim, all of that, that little bit of swim lessons paid for everything. Okay, fiscal year 23-24, we think we'll bring in somewhere around $1,175,000 for swim lessons, point of sale, and passes. Contractors will be about $225,000. Total revenue, $1,400,000. The expenses for salaries and benefits are going to be around $926,665. Supplies, $65,567. Utilities, $218,061. Maintenance and repair, $71,882. And other operating expenses, $27,825. Total expenditures, $1,310,000. Net income of $90,000. Now you're asking why this year are we going to be less than next year? We're bringing on 2 full-time staff to help with swim lessons and other programming. They won't be very administrative. They'll probably be 2 hours admin a day, and the rest either lifeguarding or teaching swim lessons or managing lessons. So it's a very active position. Okay.
And this is conservative number because this is a budget.
Yeah, this is conservative. The income could be higher, expenses could be lower as well. Okay, so we budgeted for some repairs in the pool. We want to repair and make fully operational our HVAC system for our indoor pool. So it's going to cost around $34,000. Basically, what we do is we use the HVAC that we heat the pool water from the air coming in and out of the natatorium, which is what the area inside the pool area. We think this will save money for the pool. And then we need to replace, or we think we have to replace our CO2 tank. It's currently being worked on. Hopefully within the next month we'll know if it really does need to be replaced. It's going to be about $16,000. It is used to regulate the pH in the pool and the alkalinity so they don't go up or down any more than we really want it to, and keeps it much more stable. Okay, so everyone wondered why were we generating $251,000? Well, this is the project, okay? The indoor pool, in comparison, was replaced, the shell was replaced in 2020. It was $147,000. That was only 6 lanes long and only 7 feet deep. The outdoor pool is 10 lanes and 14 feet deep. So it's going to probably be around $250,000. The shells last 8 to 15 years. We're on year 12. So that being said, we're not quite there, but we might be there within a year or two. If you go swimming on the pool, you will notice that occasionally there are cracks on the pool, which indicate that it is starting to get time to be replaced. Questions?
Well, it seems like you're planning ahead, so that's good. You have a question?
No, I just have some brief comment. From the day that we started designing the pool, and something that we as a board and as a district need to keep in mind, is this is a school facility. It's for our students first. That's what it was built for, with the community coming in. During that process, we never imagined that we'd ever see a profit. So the management of the pool has been extraordinary. And when we look at the pool hourly, I don't see the student use, the PE classes on there, because it's really important to keep in mind that part of the money that's needed for the pool is coming for instruction for our students, which is coming from the general fund. So it's hard to map out how much we really might be losing or gaining in a year, because part of that time is going for classes from the high school mostly. Although we did imagine bringing students in from other places as well. So those are my comments. I think the superintendent understands that. I mean,
Do we offer any like discounted or free swim lessons to Albany Unified students who maybe couldn't otherwise afford it, other than during this ELOP? Oh,
It was a separate program.
okay, during the summer program.
Yeah. So we have the Albany Swims. I think it was about 24,000, at least that's this upcoming fiscal year. And we'll be opening that for participants so they can join. In total, it won't be everybody that is eligible, but it will be a decent chunk of the people that are eligible.
That's awesome. Some anecdotes I hear from the community are, we love the swim lessons in Albany. They're not enough. I have a family member who was like, yeah, I pick up my kid from daycare in the middle of the day, drive her to her swimming lesson in Albany because it's the only time I could get in, and then take her back to daycare because they so love the swim lessons there. So I think you're doing something right. It's great. We should keep that up. And it's obviously working well if we can afford to have a pool that does not, take out of the general fund more than is needed to cover having students use that space and can be maintained. And that's a great community asset.
The swim programs usually is around 80 to 90% full. So that is a context. We don't have enough space really to fill all the 3-year-olds, 4-year-old swim lessons because of the amount of room in our pool. During the summer, because of it being warmer, we're able to expand it a little bit more than during the regular part of the year. So, yeah.
So you're not teaching it like at the YMCA in their little warm tiny pool where you're like this in there with the little kids squatting down. Okay, well, that was my experience, so thanks for not making it that tight. All right, any other board comments or questions? I think the overall sentiment is this is impressive. Please keep doing this. We really love this report. Trustee Boyd and I, or Vice President Boyd and I, sat in many meetings like, oh God, how can we do this? This is a nice change. And we want to credit you.
It's super pleasant in comparison to, it's really nice that we have a pool and everything, but what are we doing? So, well done, thank you.
Thank you very
I
much.
think there was even actually a budget advisory committee meeting where there was a conversation like, maybe we shouldn't have a pool. And we were like,
what?
That's what we're at now. So it's really, really nice to have this and know that we can maintain it and keep it.
Definitely.
So thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, this item is adjourned.
that's a great report. That's a great report, yeah.
Wait, clapping during a budget presentation. That's a good school board meeting. Let's keep those up. All right, we're going to move on to a communications update.
Thank you, Madam Chair, President Davidson. As you know, goal number 3 for the district is communication leading together. And to bring you a midterm update on our communication and our plans and our implementation, we have our own communication expert. You guys know her, our very own Dr. Kim Trutain.
Well, hi, everybody. Although communications are just an integral part of all of our work here in a school district. I think this may be the first time there's been a presentation to the board that's focused solely on communications. So thank you for having me. Communications connect people, they engage parents and students, and they build trust. And so I feel like it's critically important that we pay attention to our communications. Now, I think probably the most important communication that takes place in the district is that between teachers and students and vice versa, and between staff and administrators back and forth. However, in this particular update, I am not going to be focusing on those. I'm going to be touching on them, okay? And mostly we're going to be talking about the communication between staff and administrators and parents, guardians, and secondary students. And I added secondary students there because I feel like it's a mark of respect. But in Albany Unified, we also send our bulletins, our newsletters, our updates to our secondary students so they get a chance to read them and more fully engage with their school. Okay. There we go. Okay. So I wanted to touch on the tools that we use to communicate. And here's just a few of them listed on this slide. And I want a little bit of a disclaimer here. I spend a great deal of my time writing. Okay? And so you might think that someone in my position would say that the best way to communicate, the clearest, most efficient way to communicate is through writing. And I do not say that. That is not my opinion. The first and best way to communicate is face-to-face, in person. Okay? Now, in the district, we use many tools. Okay? Everybody has their AUSD Gmail. And that's great. That's great for conversations between individuals or to a few, but it is not a mass email server. We also have Google Classroom, which is a great teacher-student tool. And we also have Language Line. And I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that, it's a live translation service. So when there's a meeting, with non-English speaking parent or guardians, you call up Language Line and you get a live translator, and they are in your meeting on the phone and they translate both ways for you. So that's incredibly useful. Now, one thing that I am going to spend some time with here is a Parent Square. Okay, I spelled it out here in the green, but just because it's so long after this point in the presentation, I'm just going to abbreviate it with PSQ. Okay? So Parent Square is able to broadcast district-wide and school-wide messages. Okay? It's also what we use to send classroom newsletters and announcements. Teachers can use it, and actually also room parents can use it too. So we're able to give a room parent a narrow capability to send broadcast messages just to that class without them ever seeing the personal email addresses of any other parent. Yeah? Now, also, Parent Square is our absence and tardy auto notice server. As well, we send emergency and non-emergency alerts, which you would receive as a text message on your phone, just with your regular text messages from whatever provider you normally use. Okay? Lastly, another feature of Parent Square are direct messages. So this is within Parent Square, and it's like a conversation, kind of like a chat, usually between teachers and parents or guardians. Now, I think that the important things to know about Parent Square is that it is AUSD's communication software Aries Communication powered by Parent Square. It's our 3rd year using it, and the fact that it is Aries Communication means that there is no outside vendor involved. So all of our student and adult information remains secure in our student information system. We don't share it out to anyone. Okay? It synchronizes nightly with Aries, so that means that you can enroll today, and tomorrow you'll be getting messages from your school and your classroom teacher. Also, any changes that you might want to make are able to be put in place very quickly. Yeah. Now, a key feature is that parents and or guardians receive emails in the language listed in Aries as their home language. So it has language capabilities that our previous mass email server did not. Okay. Now, the next thing is sometimes misunderstood. All parents, guardians, receive these emails and texts from Parent Square without registration. No registration is required. It's never required. If Aries has a working phone number and a working email address, you will get these messages. Okay? However, we do sometimes send out invitations to parents to register, because if they do register, they get a little bit more control over their account. They can decide whether they want to get their messages instantly or in an evening digest. They can select the language that they want to receive their communications in themselves. Although a family's home language may be different, perhaps they prefer to receive school communications in English. Okay. And lastly, you can also sort of choose for yourself whether you want to get notifications by email or text message or both. Huh? What? Okay, so to dive a little bit more deeply in what our communications universe sort of looks like, I wanted to show you this weekly summary. So every Monday morning, the first thing I do when I open my computer is to take a good look at this. Okay? I chose for the presentation tonight the week beginning October 30th. And in that week, as you can see, we sent 84 posts, which is sort of Parent Square language for emails, and we sent out just over 200 direct messages and 0 alerts. The next little section is the top post authors. And you'll see 3 of our school secretaries, our executive chef, and our middle school principal there. This list varies from week to week, but these are the usual suspects. All of our principals, all of our school secretaries, and a handful of other people throughout the district are the ones that are usually sending out posts the most. At the bottom, that long green bar that goes almost all the way over, except with that tiny little bit of red at the end, that's the percentage of families that we can reach. For this week, it was 99.4% of our families were reachable. And I am really proud of that. However, I want you to know that I do look up and try to figure out what's happening with those 20 families that we couldn't get, because I would like for one day to see that top out at 100%. There's a variety of things that can happen there. A parent might accidentally click spam on an email, and that'll drop them out of our count for a while. And there's a few other technical glitches that might happen. Okay. Now, just to give you a feel for what those categories are filled with, I wanted to show you this slide. So the 84 posts include the weekly newsletters from all of the elementary schools and from the middle school, daily bulletins from the high school, the superintendent's community update, weekly classroom newsletters from a lot of different teachers, board meeting notifications, food service notifications, some monthly newsletters from the high school principal and from the high school counseling department, and special announcements from all of the school offices and teaching staff. Might be an event that's happening, might be a reminder for something special. And that's what builds up that 84 post number. Now in the middle, that 202 direct messages, those I mentioned before, they are private conversations between a teacher and a parent. And I know I noted here parents can respond within the app, so it's a two-way conversation. But if they don't happen to have the Parent Square app on their phone, this reverts to email. And so the parent will get this message one way or the other. Okay? Now, the last category, 0 alerts. Well, there were no alerts that particular week, but there have been. And this feature is incredibly useful for emergencies because very quickly the superintendent can contact me and I can send out an emergency message that arrives to our parents almost instantaneously. Okay. Now, to take a step back after we've done our deep dive, let's pull back a little bit. And these are the numbers year to date for the school year. Okay? We've sent over 1,000 posts, over 2,000 direct messages, 6 alerts, and nearly 26,000 auto notices. Those are the absent or tardy notifications. And then before I leave Parent Square, there we go. Before we leave Parent Square, I wanted to touch on 2 things. We've talked about the utility of the emergency alert system that it offers. But principals can also send a single text message from their phone that will go out to all staff. And so that's useful. It's useful combined, with some other tools, of course, also for things that change during the day. So, for example, a principal might send out a non-emergency alert that says, the fire drill for this afternoon is canceled. It's just another way of making sure that everybody gets that information. Or it might be something like the sun has come out, we don't have to have rainy day lunch, we can have regular lunch outside. Okay? I can also send out non-emergency alerts to parent populations in the district. So for example, like if a water main breaks on a street adjoining the school, I can send out a message to the parents saying, we have this street problem, you're gonna have to pick up from the other side. No. And then lastly, we've talked about the direct message feature, but I just wanted to point out the utility of this as a translation tool, because the teacher can send out a direct message to a parent saying, Sylvia finally got this math concept today that we've been working on, and it was really nice, and you may want to ask her about it. And that message is translated en route to the parents so that it arrives in their language, and they can write back and say, thank you, Miss Smith. She did talk about it. That was wonderful. And so it allows a conversational exchange that's just inherent within this tool, the software that we own. And now I'm going to switch over to something completely different. Parent Square is not our only communications tool. We also have our websites. And this fall, we've spent a fair amount of time trying to get the elementary websites all updated. I want to point, we try to keep the pictures refreshed on the websites. You'll notice the new mural from Ocean View that is so incredibly beautiful. The ball wall at Cornell. And then President Davidson sent me that shot of the sunset at Marin. just about a week or two ago. I thought that was really beautiful. One thing that you might notice on these is that all of these homepages have 6 homepage tabs, and they're all the same. Okay? So I was able to meet with the principals at the very beginning of the school year, and we sort of worked through what needed to be on these sites and how it should be organized, and it then has been a step-by-step process in terms of getting there. There we go. This. Okay. So to look a little bit deeper about what's underneath each of those tabs, I have this table created. So I'm not saying that the content of all of the elementary websites is the same. It's not. Of course, the principal's message is different and unique to each school. The parent handbook is different. The librarians at every school have their own take on what they're featuring and what they want to bring forward. However, there is a consistent organization that's going to help us keep these updated. In the little text at the bottom, I'll just point out that the blue items are not things that the school secretary or principal needs to update themselves. So this takes the burden off them because it was a lot. Okay? So then the purple are items that usually files that need to be uploaded, and that's just one action that you do annually, and then it's good for the year. So those are pretty easy too. The black items are things that might need a little bit more maintenance. They at least need to be checked annually and might need to get changed. Okay? Now, another thing that I wanted to point out is that we brought forward the calendar and bell schedule and made it its own tab because that was what most people were looking for. Most of the visits to the website are trying to get that information. So instead of hiding it in a submenu, we just put it up front and forward. I also dropped in this image of a new page, if your child needs more help. I hope to see like a fist pump over there from Trustee Boy, yeah. This came out of the Student Achievement Committee recommended that we have this, and I worked with Executive Director Brill and the principals on what we could provide to parents to give them some direction about some steps to take if their child needs more help. So I hope that you guys will have a minute to go to the websites and take a look and enjoy the new look. Now, my last slide is just to point out that those things that I've been able to touch on tonight are only part of the whole story. I also work on signs. Up there in the top corner, you see the notice for visitors. That's a legal notice, and it's very important to have. It's not as much fun as diagonally at the bottom corner. Those are some signs that we made for the restrooms at the middle school. Those are a lot more fun. They have been produced. I am not sure whether they have been posted yet on those bathrooms. We also have banners. Those go through the communications department. And then, I'm sorry for the tiny, tiny print. This section from the Ocean View newsletter a few weeks ago is just a placeholder to remind me to tell you a little bit about the announcements. We have all kinds of groups within the district, parent affinity groups, we have choirs, we have other things, and so if it's an internal group that has an announcement, I would need to put that, write that up and link it out and send it to the schools so that that can be run in the newsletter. Now, we also get a lot of requests from outside entities, and those we vet very carefully. If an entity, it has to be a 501c3, and they have to meet other requirements, but if they do, then we will publish their notice as well. And those I gather up also and vet and send those out. So those sections of the elementary newsletters are something that I do, as well as similar sections to the middle school weekly bulletin. And also I send messages along and channel them up to the high school if that's the age-appropriate group. And lastly, in this upper corner, I put the newsletter. That's a printed document that we send out to all residences in Albany every year. Not the school community, every single residence in Albany, plus all of the people that are with the school community, so staff and students that live outside of Albany also get a mailed copy. Okay? So it's kind of a year-long effort to get that together. And indeed, if the situation calls for additional printed pieces, additional flyers or brochures, if those are ever called for, I would be working on those as well. And with that, I'll just remind you guys that face-to-face communication is the best, and that communication is the heart of education. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, let's communicate about that a little bit. Anyone have any comments? Trustee Khan.
I have 2 questions. Sorry. Is there a way to see how many parents are actually using the app versus email? Or is that not possible to track?
Yeah, I could put that into a Friday update. I think I can get that number for you.
No rush. It was just like,
Yeah.
I was just curious about that as I was listening. And then is there a way to actually check how many parents, so I know we have, like you said, 99.4% that are actually like, have the account, get these communications. Are we able to track how many parents are actually engaging with it? Like, do we, like, because I know I don't have the app on, I do have the app on my phone, but I get the emails. And so when I open the emails, I actually like read through or like react to things and whatnot. But is there a way to see how many people actually engage or?
That's a more difficult question. And yeah, so what I know from the delivery data that I get is I know if it was delivered, and then I know if it was opened. Okay, I'm never going to know if it was read or not once it's opened. If it's opened, I feel fairly confident that they at least glanced at it. Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome.
You can lower it by like point-something%, because my email that's attached to it is bouncing all emails back right now, so I'm probably ruining your number. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much for this presentation. I have a comment and a question, or yeah, maybe a suggestion. But my comment is that it's just so awesome to see how well all these different types of communication are working, especially the translation. It's just, I feel like between this and talking about the Aquatic Center, it's just like this wonderful celebration of, things could use improvement in this way, and then there's a lot of really, great work and thoughtfulness put into how to make these things better and more accessible. And as a parent myself using the website, I personally can tell that it's easier to navigate. I find what I'm looking for much more easily. Finding Aries used to be like the bane of my existence, and now it's like everywhere. Like, it's not hard for me to locate it all, and it works wonderfully well. So thank you, everyone who's working on that. It really, just speaking personally, it has a large impact on my life. As I was saying to President Davidson, looking for the bell schedule is something I'm doing constantly, because apparently I can't keep the information in my head. But it's nice that it's there. My one question / kind of suggestion, or if it's something that's been thought about, is I really love the fact that there is the page that you highlighted about if your child is, or if your student could use help. And it looks like, just from a quick look, I didn't even realize it was there at all. And sadly, I don't use the elementary school pages anymore because my kids got big. But is there something like that for middle and high school, or was there any thought about that? I know it's a very different time. It's a, you know, the sort of information you'd be sharing is very different. If you look at the high school website, it's not even like geared to parents at all. It's kind of like, you know, the kids are much bigger now, and so it's a different way of interacting, but I was just curious about that.
The text that I started with for that actually came from the AMS newsletter that runs a section in their weekly bulletin about, like, what to do if your student needs more help. And so that went through a great deal of modification for the elementary parents. But it is in the AMS newsletter. I think it's still there. I think it's there every week. But the AMS bulletin is really, really long. Yeah, and so you may not have noticed it recently. And then in terms of working on something similar to the high school, that's going to need to come come in the future. We can start talking about that.
Yeah, but thank you for that question. And it will be something that we will start working on because it's a need. As a parent, and I don't have any kids in high school anymore, that would be a nice feature if my kid was struggling or we were trying to find something else. And what's good for elementary school, we find out it's good for secondary as well. And that's something very doable. So we'll start looking into that and circle back.
Sorry, just one quick follow-up to say, because the weekly AMS email is extremely informative, but also very long and also really difficult to read on my phone. So I wonder if it might be helpful to have that on the website as well, maybe, although I recognize that it's in the weekly communications, but I don't know that I get that far in the little tiny writing.
It's one of my personal goals to start working a bit more with AMS in the next several months. And then I also wanted to just briefly mention that I also know that the high school is working on placing that Google Translate button at the top of their web pages. So that is in progress. So we got things happening all over. Yeah.
Thanks, Kim. What's the best way to communicate something that doesn't look quite right? And I'm thinking it looks like it was coded black, which means it's the site's responsibility, but the principal's message, for example, at Ocean View, it still has Terry Georgeson as the principal and her message, whereas Kat Floresca's is more recent principal and hers has her name on it. But if we notice things, is that something we should report to you or to the site? Or I just think that's an important thing to have accurate.
You can always, as a matter of fact, I wanted to mention at the beginning that I felt like I was going to go over time-wise, and I wanted to let all of you know that you can always email me. We can have a meeting. We can talk on the, if you have a question about any of these communication issues, please reach out and I'll answer your questions. Or we can, of course, route it through Dr. Wells, and he can pull me in on a meeting with you. For that particular issue, I wouldn't hesitate to send an email. I know that I know that page.
Yeah, and I only found that, by the way, because I was looking for something else that I was hoping would be there, and I was, it wasn't like I was sort of stalking and trying to find errors, but yeah, anyway, I appreciate that, thank you. The high school's a whole other thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Regarding the Ocean View issue, we'll start working on that tomorrow. Thank you for that. And two, in terms of the protocol, just let me know, and then we'll get my team, including Dr. Chitain, and we could resolve it and circle back. But it all goes to me. But in this case, we would start working on that tomorrow with that outdated message. And it's really outdated because our principal is in her second year, so wow, thank you.
I just want to remember Terry. Just don't forget. I know, we want to remember everybody. I know, we bypassed Michelle, sorry. I want to just appreciate that the elementary websites are now all consistent. And I think that's a really good look for the district too, for outside people coming in. When you start looking, it's like, oh, look, the 3 elementary schools, oh, they're like uniformed, they're consistent. So it's not, oh, this one has a great website and we want to go to this school, and oh, that one, meh. Like, it just really presents well, and I appreciate that. And, you know, as someone who talks to lots of parents outside of our district, I know how important that is. Like, that's their first interaction with us often, and that's really nice. Yeah. And it's getting easier and easier to use just our AUSD website, too. So that's really good. Awesome.
Great.
All right. Anyone else here or public comment online? Okay. With that, we will end our communications on this item. And we will move on to approval of our consent calendar. Comments, motions?
Comment.
Yep.
And 10B has no anti-discrimination clause. It's a contract with the lawyers, so I would move, well, I would like to see that changed, and then that's my only comment.
I'd like to pull that one too, actually. Yeah, 10B for a different reason, but.
Would we like to do any other items to pull?
No, I was just going to second the motion.
There's no,
I thought, Vicky.
you want to make a motion minus item 10B?
Motion, move to approve the consent calendar, except pulling item 10B.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yeah? Okay.
I'll second, yeah.
Oh, whoops, sorry. We like tried that
A
one
third.
3 times. We're all in favor, let's do that one. Okay, let's talk about item 10B. Trustee Hopwood.
Okay, so I wasn't sure, I don't want to be repeating what Ron said, but I think my issue is different. There was a range here of cost in terms of what we're agreeing to, this contract. We're looking at a range of $130 an hour for a paralegal to $450 an hour for a partner. So it's kind of, you know, it's tricky to approve a contract when you're not really sure what the cost of that would be. And also, just we've had this sort of issue before where I feel like it's the horse before the cart. So it looks like William Tunick signed that contract on the 20th of October. And we've had meetings since, and so I guess I'm just wondering why this wasn't brought to us before, because obviously this is important. We need this worked on because we need the language to be correct for the ballot measure. So that was really more of just the things that I was not super comfortable with that.
I missed that.
Yeah.
Shame on me.
So we've had meetings, you know, before, right around that time, and after that time. And I know we've had some back and forth with approving our contract with Team Civics and with Godby, but so that may have upended this a little bit, but yeah, I just would like these things to come to us sort of chronologically rather than after the fact, you know, but yeah, thank you.
Ooh, now I have an issue. One question about that, though. Do we have an estimate of how much we really think we're going to spend with the attorneys?
Go ahead.
So this is the day that we received the contract from them. So Jeremy recommended this attorney firm that he has been working on so many partial tax ballot as well as Berkeley. So I contacted them. I say, yes, please go ahead and send us the agreement. We are gonna bring it to the board. So this is the day that they send us the contracts. I think that's the date that we have, October 20th. And since then, I just asked him one question. So there is no really cost. I asked him one question: are you available for the board meeting in November 28th? Because I want to make sure that the attorney is available to answer any questions for the board. So there is really no work done with this attorney.
Except that if we have them at the meeting on the 28th.
Yes.
But that's my point, I guess, is just simply that the range of of hourly rates in that firm. And I do understand that William Tunick is the guy who actually worked with Alameda with that appeals case and won for them. So I think he's probably the person for the job. But just that it's hard to approve something when we don't really know the cost of it.
So in that case, also I know that he is the partner of the firm, so he will be the top hourly rate. And sometimes I know if there is some research needs to be done, then they usually give it to their associate and other paralegals. So it varies. So we don't know at this time if we have any other hours, but I do know that he is one of the partners that will be the highest rate.
Sorry, I think it says in here in the fees and billing practices, I think it says that we're working with Gregory Danis, and then it states, Mr. Danis's hourly rate shall be $450. So, because it's a little confusing, like above it says, the rate range for him and shareholder emeritus shall be $395 to $450. The lovely range, just charge at the top of it, and that's what he does. But does that mean we're working with him? Is he our guy, or?
Yes, he is.
Okay. And we're paying him $450 an hour.
It is correct.
So the lawyer says that's not expensive, so we're getting a bargain.
These are not expensive rates, in case that's helpful for anyone.
It's more than teachers make in a day, FYI. Yeah, I hear you.
And we can also pin him down to not to exceed, and if so, it comes back, so that the board is, and all of us are very comfortable. But we didn't go get, as you know, if you research him, some kind of mediocre. This is the best in the business.
President Davison, sorry, could you just point me to where you saw that information about the name? Because I didn't, I guess.
In the agreement for professional services.
Yeah, got it.
So
under which category?
If you go down to fees and billing practices and kind of, it's like the third sentence down.
Okay, let's go back to the beginning. Oh, right here. Okay, so. Yeah, I saw that. Okay, okay, that's fine. I guess I didn't, I just read that person's hourly rate was that amount. I didn't, wasn't clear to me that that's the person that we were actually going to be retaining. So I thought it was just a mention because that person is obviously a partner. Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Okay, so, yeah, which is interesting because it's signed by Tunick. Confusing to us. Okay. Melissa, that's common practice, I'm assuming?
This is not my area, so I cannot, in fact, just do it. You know, I mean, I think that it certainly is not surprising to me at all to have a range of rates, as I think CBO Kim pointed out. You don't actually want the highest rate doing all the things. If there are research or administrative type things to be happening, you definitely want the lower billable folks in line to be doing that work. So having the range like that is you know, very standard. As far as naming the one person but having the other person sign, I mean, you know, from a cost standpoint, it doesn't seem like it's making a big difference hourly. From an expertise standpoint, we presumably would want to confirm who is actually going to be working with us. If there's one kind of, you know, he's the man for parcel tax person, then maybe we want that person. But I don't, yeah, certainly don't see any concerns as far as the rates themselves.
And then often in the past, we've had contracts where we've said not to exceed an amount, and I didn't see that here. Is there a reason for that, or is this because we just,
because
just
it
curious.
depends on how many questions we might have for him and how many other research we want him to do. So I didn't put, but we don't see a lot of hours involved because hopefully this will be really done by November 28th.
And just to note, I went through that and I went through some reflection over the decades. When it comes to attorneys, typically you don't do that for obvious reason. You don't know what kind of stuff comes up, and then you can't keep going back to the board. But with every other contract, we always have not to exceed. Trustee Rosenbaum really pointed out in the contract that we should also have the non-discrimination, and we're going to make sure we put that in there too. And so thank you for catching that one. We appreciate that.
All right, so are we ready to take a motion on this with the amendment of the non-discrimination clause? Anyone want to make that motion?
I can make a motion to approve item 10B with the amendment of the non-discrimination clause.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 10B passes. Great. We'll be working with some attorney at some rate that is deemed reasonable. I'm sorry, it's 8 o'clock. No, we're not doing that tonight. That is out of the question. We are moving on to superintendent and board member reports.
Madam Chair, President Davidson, Superintendent has no report tonight.
It's your turn.
Okay, I'm going to try not to do the thing where I end up having to say multiple other things later. So I think the only thing that I want to say is I'll just say a couple of happy Albany Middle School things, which is that I, as a parent, really appreciate the wonderful athletics program that they have going there. I am the proud parent of a 6th grade basketball student, and I so appreciate all of the hard work and dedication that comes in from all of the coaches and the parent volunteers, and it's really wonderful. And oh wait, the other thing I was going to say was about the high school, so I'm not allowed. Well, I mean, I could. I attended the coffee house from the Albany High School students at Ashkenaz, and it was just a really wonderful program, not just saying that because my daughter sang with her friends. But it was just so well attended, and the students that participated were just so talented, so full of personality and energy. I was having a whole nostalgic situation about how I, too, used to be in high school and had my whole sort of life in front of me and all that. But it was just really wonderful, and I just really appreciate all of the time and care and dedication and energy that comes from our students and also our faculty, our staff, to think about ways to enrich our school communities and to enrich our city, and just all of these various events that are happening in people's spare time and spare time they don't have, but in their time that are not during normal business hours, to enrich the lives of our students and their families. It's just really wonderful. So that's my report.
Thank you. Okay, mine is quick. PTSA at the high school meeting was last night on Google Meet. The next one is in person. It's not till February the 12th, so lots of time for people to organise to be there. They're kicking off their fundraising after Thanksgiving. The Cougar Challenge is the big fundraiser. The goal is to reach $6,000, so look out for communication about that. And the high school's also still offering its drop-in college application support on a number of days between now and the very end of the month. So there are a few days after Thanksgiving that they'll be doing it too. So look on the school calendar is the best place to find information for that. And there are lots of fall and winter concerts coming up. So again, good idea to check the high school calendar, which has all of that information. And that is everything. Thank you.
Okay, so hold on. I just emailed these to Julie. So Ocean View is still having parent-teacher conferences that are going to continue all the way to Friday, November 17th. So we're still on the early bird schedule for the rest of the week. Our Ocean View Book Fair went really, really well. We actually raised more funds than last year, but we also reached more parents and students. Like we had more individual families and students that came in, purchased books, and I think in large part this was due to the fact that our wonderful librarian, Miss Michelle, raised funds to distribute these raffle tickets that were students were randomly selected, and so it was really wonderful to see all these kids come in with their like little vouchers and be like, I want a voucher and I can like pick out books. And so a lot of kids were really excited to be able to pick out books. And so we definitely beat all of last year's numbers, and we're really excited about that. We're working on planning even more exciting events for next year. So yeah, stay tuned for that. And then lastly, I had the opportunity to help serve ice cream for some of the classes that won the walkathon. So like the classes that raised the most money during our walkathon, which we also beat like all like the past 4 or 5 years worth of fundraising goals. Like this was the highest we've raised ever with the walkathon. So we got to like serve them ice cream, and like so it was really fun and cute to like be able to appreciate them for all the work that they do. I do want to give a major kudos, shout out to May, who is our like superstar parent volunteer who's been helping lead like not just the fall festival, but also the walkathon and all these different events that are happening at Ocean View. So just like huge shout out to her for her dedication to the Ocean View community. I was not able to attend the PTA meeting, but I know Jackie gave a presentation, so thank you for that, Jackie. And that is all.
Well, I went to the Marin PTA meeting last night, and the real interesting thing that happened is we wound up having sort of a fairly short but meaningful conversation about partial tax. And they had, I just mentioned that this meeting was coming up. I'm an individual, not representing the whole board, which they were very clear on, but they had some questions about what the possibilities could be. Is it going to be a flat rate? Is it going to be this, or is it going to be that? So I encourage them to keep posted and try to attend these meetings or watch them online. And there's going to be more information coming out, but things are happening. And Marin, of course, there's a lot of stuff going on because it always is. They've had family math on Thursdays, and there's independent. They had a discussion about independent study and keeping the value of sending your students to school instead of asking for independent study if you can take a vacation. It's always been a big issue. And so they're actually talking about that at Marin. They've been having community sing and coffee with the principal. They're taking food donations for the community food bank. They're buying and getting ready to install rock climbing walls. I like that. I'm not going to do it, but I like that. And there's donations coming in for that, and there's some fundraising that's been going on. And they've got it mapped out where they think it should go, and they're going to be talking to people at the district about the logistics of putting that in. So they're very touching the murals, putting in new art. They've got a brand new committee on gardening, and a talent show coming up in March. That's Marin.
All right, well, Cornell is looking for parent volunteers for their winter craft fair and bake sale on December 2nd. So if you're available, volunteer. They are also doing their conferences. I want to appreciate Albany Unified because we give 2 weeks of minimum days for conferences. It is reasonable, it makes sense, and it's really respectful of parents and teachers to have that available. And so, as someone who used to think, oh, why do we need 2 weeks? And now I really see it. It's quite nice. And it's lovely to have that opportunity to meet with your kids' teachers. I also had the privilege of driving on a field trip with a 4th grade class, and kids love getting out on field trips, so I really appreciate that. I do want to raise that I would love to introduce a way in our district to streamline getting parents cleared for driving. I think that there are some ways we could make this a lot easier, and working with our PTAs to have a day where a fingerprinting person comes out and just does everyone that wants it. Parents do TB tests, and we work on a driving record system. So that's kind of my thoughts from that. And they are very excited to hear updates about their play structure. All right, that concludes my report. And we are now going to do future agenda items. Yes, November 28th is our next meeting. It's a special meeting. However, we need to add one thing to that, a very short thing. Per our board handbook, we need to have an opportunity for board members who are interested in either being president or vice president in December, but the last meeting in November, we have to have 5 minutes where board members can express interest in that at the next meeting. That's in our board
Yeah,
policies.
our handbook calls for reorganization at the first meeting in December, and the meeting before that, whether it happens which is obviously in November, we make our wishes known. And then I'm hoping that we would get a chance to maybe do a quick review. It's very short, our board policies on reorganization. The board handbook.
You want to do that at the next meeting?
Or we could do it right now. I could read it into the record.
Yeah, well, let's read them right now. Is that okay with everybody? Real quick, just read so we're all aware of what they are.
Okay.
Okay. Ron is our handbook aficionado.
I got it here somewhere.
While he's finding that, I will
I was
also share
just-
that I got to attend the turkey trot at the Albany Middle School. And I'm sorry that this is just me being really proud of my children, but my sixth grader was the second fastest girl and non-binary who was running with the students assigned female at birth. And she got a turkey hat that we now have and is a part of our Thanksgiving decorations at home.
Annual reorganization of the board. The principle is that in the best interest of the board, it is in the best interest of the board that its officers be both willing and able to carry out the relevant duties. Effective board members are not necessarily effective board presidents, nor do all members have the time needed to provide effective leadership. Protocols are, at the first regular meeting in December, the board elects a president and vice president. Board members should make known at an open meeting before the vote whether they should be willing to retain and/or assume either office. At the reorganization meeting, the superintendent will preside over the election of the president. The newly elected president will preside over the election of the vice president. Any board member may nominate any other member, including the current officers, for either office. There is no limit to the number of times a member may serve as an officer, nor is there any expectation that all members will serve as officers or automatically rotate into each position. The presiding officer shall ask each member whether he or she wishes to nominate someone for the position. The member may nominate him, herself, or another member, or, I lost it, or may decline to make a nomination. The nominated members will be asked to accept the nomination. If the member declines to accept the nomination, he or she will not be considered to have been nominated. No second is required for a nomination. After all nominations have been made, the board shall take a vote for each nominee. If nominated, a member may vote for himself or herself, no member may abstain from voting. In the case of a tie, the presiding officer will hold a runoff vote. That's the whole thing.
Thank you for that. I missed the part about they must make known at the meeting before the.
So I just wrote that down because I think that's ambiguous, and I don't think it's true we have to talk about it on the 28th of November. It says at an open meeting before the vote. My sense is that the December meeting is an open meeting, and it just implies that we just have to talk about it at the open meeting before we hold the vote. It doesn't say the meeting prior to the meeting. Saying it's a little. Okay, so but what?
I had to
Ron
look
just
that
read
up
out-
again. I looked that up tonight because Bonnie had a question about that. So it says board members should make known at an open meeting before the vote. Oh, it could be at the open meeting.
Okay, that's fine. I read it somewhere that it says
Ooh.
it gave the December date and it had the November one when I went on our website. I'll research it more.
I know that in the past, way back in the day when we had covered wagons and all of that stuff, we did it at the same meeting.
Okay.
We did it that way in the time of
Okay,
electric cars.
so we have to decide if, because that's ambiguous, that's true.
the meetings I've watched, like through the pandemic.
Says
and
before
prior,
members shall make
it
known
was
in
at
open
the
meeting.
meeting. It was not somebody having to do a little statement at the
I
meeting
don't see
before.
that we need to do it.
And that would be consistent with, I've been in administration for 27 years, and every district I've been in is always the way you just read it in the handbook. At the meeting in December, the first day of December.
Yeah.
Everyone does it that way. No one's required to make announcements.
Because what if you change your mind or whatever, yeah.
That's great. That's easier. Great.
makes
So we
it
don't have to worry
much
about that. For literally, somewhere in here it said,
That's why I was
Last-
confused when we talked about that. Yeah.
somewhere in here it says the last November meeting. I will find it.
If you find it,
Yeah.
we can always add it, can't
Totally.
we, as an agenda
All right.
item?
So,
With that, any other agenda
wait,
items?
the only thing for future meetings, do we have a date for talking about, coming back to the PE question at the high school? No, we're not gonna let you.
We have really good news that we plan to put into the Friday update about our collective concerns. There has been, well, this, this is not an agenda item. I'm just going to put in a Friday update and see if the board wants to come back because we think we resolved the issues. So it'll be in Friday update, and then I'll talk to our president and see whether or not she wants it to come back or not.
Good enough.
Sounds good.
I was just gonna say, I think it would be nice at some point to have some sort of either a celebration or something for all of our wonderful parent volunteers, because I think they give so much time and effort to all the different events that we host and just a lot of things. Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be like a district celebration, or even if it's just like certificates or something where folks in the community can nominate like such and such parent for the outstanding work that they're doing for our community. I just feel like it doesn't hurt to recognize people for the hard work that they're putting in. That's all. I don't know if I don't want to add more work to everyone's plate, but it just as I think about all the parents that are consistently showing up, it just.
So I
There is something, I don't know.
my daughter went to Ocean View, and I remember at the school site level there was recognition of the parents, volunteers, celebration and recognition. Yes.
And I think things get lost through translation. You had 3 principals since then, and since COVID. But yeah, that's a good move.
I don't know. That's what I'm sure maybe we already do it, but.
We haven't done it in a while.
All right. With that, this meeting is adjourned.